Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another windy day in WestMan. I am getting started on this year's Three Sisters garden patch. So I figured I'd bring you along for that. Nothing terribly exciting because ultimately I'm planting corn. But as my more regular viewers will know, I have struggled with corn in the past, mostly due to plant spacing. Last year I tried some extreme row spacing that actually worked out fairly well in the Three Sisters patch. So we're going to take a little bit of that knowledge from last year, a little bit of my tendency to crowd things from previous years, and we're going to smash that into the Three Sisters patch and just kind of see what we can get out of it this year. So I'll show you kind of where we're at, and I really hope this silly little mic cover thing, this thing right here, looks ridiculous, doesn't it? I really hope it's doing its job to block the wind, because for the most part it seems to do it, but we end up with kind of a strange sort of volume and, I don't know, weird quality to my voice. Anyway, hopefully it's for the best. Taking the long wander over here to the Three Sisters patch. Now let's just kind of change the perspective here, shall we? Those of you who have been around for a long time might remember that the Three Sisters patch, which has kind of been grooving on this Three Sisters idea for a couple years now, started off as a pepper garden. Wasn't thrilled with the amount of light that the peppers got, so I've started cutting down trees. But that still hasn't quite answered the ticket for me there. However, this does seem to do well with corn and legumes and squash and gourd type crops. Last year I had 2 rows of corn along the edge, spaced 1 foot apart for the individual plants. But yeah, the row spacing was somewhat extreme. You know, that's a good 6, maybe 5.5, 6 feet. So most people would tend to put their corn a lot closer than that, and there were concerns brought up that it was going to be a problem for me because they are wind pollinated. They kind of need to bash off each other a little bit, and most people recommend planting 4 rows by 4 rows so you get a nice little block, and what I was doing was very much in opposition to that. However, I had my gourds planted, or my squash, whatever, planted in one mound here and another mound at the other end, and I had my beans in the middle. It all grew very well. We had some lovely pumpkins, some lovely spaghetti squash, some lovely string beans. However, those string beans were a little difficult to harvest once the corn grew up to any kind of substantial size. So we're going to rearrange things this year, and I'll be doing rows of corn starting where the ice fishing sled is, just inside the garden there. I kind of missed a little bit with my one pass with the tiller, so I'll have to go over that before I actually get going. But I'll be doing rows of corn 1 foot apart this way and 1 foot apart in the rows to plant my corn. So nice little grid until I run out of corn seeds. Now I've got 5 packets of corn seeds, cost $7.50. Bad investment. I should have just bought the larger bag of corn seeds. That would have probably filled this patch and the tomato patch over there, and I think it was only $6 or something, but I was not thinking ahead, and yeah. Still though, $7.50 in corn. Ultimately I need, what, maybe 10 nice juicy cobs of sweet corn over the course of the harvest to get my money back, and an 11th to have that 1 cob of profit. I think I might even try saving some of my own seeds this year. That's another whole big conversation that we'll get into, because you generally shouldn't save seeds from commercial product because they're not going to grow true, but they will eventually grow and adapt to my environment. So I'm curious to see what I get in a long-term situation there, and then I'm not paying for my seeds every year, which really kind of annoys me. I don't do it for a lot of my plants, so why should I do it for corn? You know, it's just pointless. Anyway, the wind is kicking up, so I need to get active in this and keep myself moving to stay warm. I've got some weeding to do, and we'll get back to it after I've kind of raked it flat and figured out where my rows are going to go. All right, wowzers, that wind is just nuts. Anyway, so I've got some old porch railings here that have been kicking around since we first moved here, because I knew sooner or later we'd use them for something. And I discovered that 3 lengths of baling twine goes the length of these initial 3 rows that I've set up, because honestly, I'll be surprised if those 5 packets make for 5 rows. Yeah, we'll see. The 1 foot spacing, you know, might make a significant difference there. It's just gonna have to see how that works. Yeah, I thought I would show you guys this very primitive gardening device that is basically my corn stick, because as I have said, I have struggled with spacing. So I went to the store, I got myself whatever length it was. I think it was 8 feet. Just they had a spare piece of, I believe this is molding for around baseboard molding. And yeah, I measured it at every foot, put a black line on there with the Sharpie, and used that last year for spacing my corn. I also spaced my corn rows with it. You know, this does seem kind of close to some people. I don't know. I'm really curious. I like to keep switching it up every year in the garden and experimenting with new things. So I think this will probably do pretty well, because I've learned they can do with the extreme spacing, but I suspect there is some truth to the closer, you know, really doesn't hurt the wind pollination. And I kind of want to block the garden up this year, you know. There's corn back here, beans up front, and those leggy olds, I think they're spaghetti squash starts, but they could be pumpkins, don't know. They're going to be going in the straw there. Either way, they're leggy enough that I can plant them down nice and deep. The roots will be in the soil, the leggy part will be in the straw, and then the fresh plant will be growing up above it once it hardens off. Anywho, now I'm going to go along my handy little hay twine string here every foot or so, every foot exactly, and plunk down my little corn seeds. I am going to start just in front of my post here. Maybe we'll go with the 2-finger width in front of the post, and yeah, hopefully this will end up nicely grid-like. We'll see if I need to put in a 4th row or not. I do have enough bale and twine left over, so yay. I am kind of glad that I just slipped it off instead of cutting it too. Anywho, yes, I have corn to plant, and I'll let you know at the end of 3 rows whether or not I need a 4th. So as it turns out, I am delighted to say that I do have 4 rows, roughly 1 foot apart, 1 seed in each hole, roughly 1 foot apart, assuming my markings on my corn stick are accurate. I probably could have done a 5th row. So basically, at 1 foot spacing, with the size of this garden, $1.50 pack of corn seeds is about a row. So in the future, if I'm going to be growing any amount of sweet corn, I should either A, buy the large packet, because this still isn't a whole lot of corn, is it? Or I should B, save my own darn seeds, because like I was saying, I'm partial to that anyway. So now that I've got the bale and twine on here, makes it nice and easy for me to know where to water, because I don't really like wasting water. This channel started with my adventure into aquaponics, which was really gardening with water conservation in mind, because we lived under a lot of water restrictions in the Okanagan Valley. And you know, I wanted to do my part and yet still produce some fresh veg for the family. So aquaponics was where it's at. Nowadays we use rainwater as much as we can, and I don't like paying for water from the house to water my plants, so my preference is water them once and have it stay. So after I water these down, it's time to mow a little bit of lawn. I'm going to put some fresh grass clippings in the middle of each row, and then I'll use some of the surplus straw bales that I still have up there in the yard to cover up those fresh clippings, so it all looks kind of more uniform with the other bits of straw that are covering things up. That's the onion patch right there. We'll look at that in a couple of days. That's starting to look fantastic, and I suspect a couple of warm days it's going to explode. So the real question is, should I mulch today or leave the sun warming more of the soil? And I think the answer is I'm going to skip it today, because it's actually kind of windy and I don't know if I feel like cutting the lawn. So I will water it twice as heavy as maybe I normally would and let it grow. And then as the various, I still don't know, like I said, if they're spaghetti squash or pumpkins, harden off, I'm gonna plant them into the front. And then probably about, I don't know, another week and a half. Everybody says wait till after the full moon in June to plant my beans, so I'm going to follow the local folklore for my Three Sisters attempt and do just that. So that is when the beans will go in. Hopefully though, even though I've grown corn, beans, and squash in this garden last year and previously, we're not going to have too many pest issues because there are other plants growing in there. And hopefully we're developing the soil microbiology that is really required to help these three species thrive. So, I mean, looking at it in the broader terms, you got your corn, which is basically like a grass, right? You've got your beans, which is essentially any legume. And yeah, you've got your squash or your gourds or, you know, anything in that family seems to work just fine. So yeah, the official beginning of my Three Sisters garden. And look, doesn't it look delightfully organized this year? I got markers and rows, and I got markers and patches, and I am really excited to cover this up with mulch because of that uniform look it will create, and because of the moisture it will help retain. Well, actually, and because it stops the rain that falls from beating my soil into a very hard desert-like layer. I'll have to show you some of that if I find it. I try and keep my soil covered so that's not an issue, but if I find a patch while I'm going over this, I will definitely get a clip. Anyway, turn to the sun to face you here. I guess that is it for today, my garden friends. There's not much more that goes along with starting the Three Sisters patch, other than kind of letting you know what the plan is for it, where we've been with it, and where we're hoping to go with it. So yes, wish my 4 little rows of corn luck. I'm 2 weeks behind local folklore in that one, so that's on me. But once I heard that, I decided, okay, next sunny day, time to put the corn in, hence here we are today. All right, everybody, much love. Best of luck in your own garden patches this year. Lord knows we all need it. 2021 is going to be a great year. Say it along with me. 2021 is going to be a great year. Take care, everybody.